So many people are awakening to their purpose right now. So many people are seeing the world as it is. And many of us, especially mothers, but anyone listening, is like, not this. I feel like the collective is saying, we're not doing this anymore, whatever this is.
Oh my goodness. My first guest of the rebirth of Guide Not Guru. I'm so happy to be here with my good friend, Maria, who, y'all, I just was gushing with her right before recording this because this is my first episode I'm recording, period, back into the Guide Not Guru energy. And I've had such procrastination energy. I think there's been some perfectionism that's showing up again. And I'm like, Maria, you are my safe place that I was able to just be like, oh, okay, we can press go. We can talk all day long. Maria, thank you for being here.
I am so excited to be here. And if you have the privilege of ever working with Kelly, work with Kelly. She is amazing. Her heart is so big. And it's been an honor to work alongside you, to be a guest on your podcast today. So like, grab your coffees, grab your teas. Like, this is going to be good.
Yeah. We're going to have a good conversation today. And you guys, I want to introduce you to Maria. So I'm going to read a little bit more about her bio. But if you are in for understanding about spiritual awakenings and signs and synchronicities and purpose and how we find our intuitive gifts, this is the conversation for you. So Maria Serbus is a spiritual mentor and healer for female leaders and founders, helping them step into their soul purpose through intuition mastery, energetic alignment, and soul-led leadership. Through her signature framework inside of Higher Self-Awakening, Maria helps people break through subconscious and past life blocks, activate their soul gifts, awaken to their full intuition, and build movements rooted in ease, clarity, and power. She's all of those things and more. And today, like I said, I want to bring a conversation around spiritual awakening. And Maria, when I see people in the online space who are holding space for what we can see collectively right now, we could just pause right now and we all understand that we are waking up to a bigger truth. That's like, wait, shoot, this was always happening. Shoot, this was like the world that I couldn't see. That's what an awakening is. So Maria, would you tell me what a spiritual awakening means to you?
Yeah.
And like, why is it fundamental that we talk about it right now at this moment in time, even before we dive into your story?
100%. Okay. So spiritual awakening, I think the term can come with, I don't know, like a heavy connotation or woo-woo, or like, I think people can hear it and be like, oh, that's for me, or that's not for me. It can be something people quickly like almost filter themselves in or filter themselves out. I would say though, collectively, to that point you were just talking about, and Kelly, I know you and I have been unafraid to speak to just what's going on at large in the collective and calling things out, but also like calling people up to rise. So I just want to broaden people's perspective. If the word spiritual in front of awakening feels like, well, that's too woo, I don't think I'm going through a spirit, like wherever you're at in your journey. But so many people are awakening to their purpose right now. So many people are seeing the world as it is. And many of us, especially mothers, but anyone listening, is like, not this. I feel like the collective is saying, we're not doing this anymore, whatever this is. Violence, patriarchy, people operating from unhealed wounds, like not this. But then what are we creating? And so a lot of people are beginning to like feel this stirring to awaken to their purpose. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, that's truly what a spiritual awakening is. It's not actually just about like, ooh, I can talk to angels. Oh, I'm talking with my spirit guides. Like all of that's cool. But what are you doing that for? How are you going to use your gifts, your talents, your intuition to step deeply into your purpose? And so I think that's on the grander scale, that's what's happening right now is more people are realizing, how can I stand more deeply in my purpose? How can I create a world that we are proud to hand down to the next generation of small humans on the planet, in the next generation? So I think an awakening can be on different levels, but it starts by awakening to, what do I really want to do and create in the world?
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction to make, because you may be having a spiritual awakening, but just call it an awakening. You might just be like, I'm waking up, I'm seeing things differently. I remember when my awakening began, again, I didn't know what the crap an awakening was. I just knew that, I think about the time in COVID where I was privileged to have three best friends who were not white women.
Wow.
And so as the world was shifting and as, Black Lives Matters and just different things were coming up,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got the privilege of sitting next to three brown women who were talking to me about what their experience of what was happening in the world was like. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, what? They started telling me about what it was like to be them. That was a beautiful example of what it was like to awake to a different reality that exists at this exact moment in time, but I never saw before. My eyes were closed to it. I didn't have the vision or sight for it. Does that
Yes.
feel true for you?
100%. I even think you brought in this other layer. It's not always initially, it's not even always like awakening up to like, oh, this is my purpose. It's like just waking up out of your bubble. And like that's honestly, I feel like the first step in awakening that maybe people don't even realize at first. It's beginning to awaken up out of your bubble. Like I grew up in rural, very white Minnesota in the Midwest here. A lot of like Norwegian, Swedish, and German people. And I'm adopted. So, like, again, I grew up with a white family. And my first awakening, again, wouldn't have called it that at first, but my first time getting out of my bubble was when I went to college,
Mm.
And began to see the world differently.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because even my conditioning, my programming, I initially went to a private school, a private college, because I kind of thought I was raised Catholic. I kind of thought that was like the ultimate standard. And even then, even after a year of being at this private college, it was fine, but I was just like, this isn't for me. These aren't my people. I don't think this is where I'm supposed to be. And so then I transferred to a, more public, bigger college in I don't know, in a more diverse city, shall we say. And that was another expansion and awakening of my bubble. Cause same Kelly, like, even though ironically, I know that your audience can see me, I'm in brown skin, but being raised as an adoptee around white people in a white community, in a white family, you basically still live from a perception of kind of a white world.
Mm.
And so I agree. I think awakening can happen on so many different layers. And sometimes it's literally just getting outside of your bubble.
Yeah. So, Maria, how did you get into this work? Because you now are leading women through stepping into their highest version of themselves through the journey of awakening, through really lifting their eyes, letting go of past patterns. Tell us a little bit more about your story.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I want to preface that I definitely did not grow up and come out of utero being like, I'm a psychic and I'm going to help people awaken to their psychic gifts. Like, absolutely not. 3 years ago, me even would have been like, absolutely not. So, I mean, my journey started in healthcare. I grew up with a mom who was a nurse. She was a nurse for 30 plus years. She worked her way up the career ladder. So I saw, like, how stable of a career it was, how rewarding it can be to like check off the accomplishments and the milestones of the promotions and different things. And then my dad also, he was in road construction with the same company for like 30 plus years. So I just saw two people, like, you get your career and you stay there for the next 30 years. So I started my journey in healthcare. I knew I wanted to help people, and I became an occupational therapist. And I've told this story of where it's like I landed my dream OT job. I'd been out of college for about a year. I'd wrapped up my master's degree. Then I landed a dream job at Mayo Clinic, which is the #1 hospital. I mean, technically in the world, but like also regionally, it's a really good hospital. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is where I'm going to be for the next 30 years. Buckle up. And then I soon quickly realized that was not my path. I was like, oh God, I don't like this.
Mm.
There were elements, of course. So my path of ironically landing into helping other women step into their spiritual awakening and their intuition was one through a journey of me trying to find myself and trying to be like, wow, how did I land here? And started asking myself hard questions of like, what do I want? not, what did my parents want for me with their most love and their best wishes, but you know what I mean? Like we often operate out of like should, supposed to, is like, oh, I was supposed to do that. Having uncomfortable conversations with myself about like, oh, okay, so if I'm not doing that, where do I want to go? And I soon realized from just continuing on with my career to then even starting my own coaching business, I have found with all my clients and then myself is like once people start to manage their stress, that was kind of like a hat I wore for a long time, like, oh, I'm going to help you manage your stress. I'm going to help you manage your anxiety. Well, once we like got through those initial layers of the stress and anxiety, that's when I began to like realize, oh, now we're getting to their inner knowing. Now we're beginning to uncover this woman's intuition and her true desires and what she wants to do. And I realized that's what I loved going to,
How did you know you loved that? Like, I'm curious how that showed up because you were like, here's your stress. Okay, we're removing your stress. And then, oh, all of a sudden this person is lighting up with information. And like, I'm curious, how did you know, like, oh, this is lighting me up. This is what I want to do.
Yes. I'll never forget. I was doing some coaching. This was kind of as I was like starting to enter, from my OT hat to like in my coaching business, working with some people locally. And that moment, again, I'd been advertising myself as a stress management and resilience coach, helping high achievers get out of stress mode. I'd be in a coaching session sitting across from one of my clients. And that moment when I was using at the time heart math biofeedback, I was connecting a woman up so that we could see what her heart pattern was. I was using meditation to get her into this state of heart coherence. And there'd be this moment where she would go from stress, anxious, all over to like, it's like you could feel it. Yeah. She would drop into herself, drop into this knowing once she felt safe, once she felt calm, once she relaxed. And from there, it's like I was definitely still trying to find myself in like, okay, now what do I help her with? Because like, okay, we've removed the stress. Now what? So at the time early on, I was using like Oracle deck, like a card. We would do card pulls, and I'd kind of like get her to access that. Or I'd walk her through a meditation visualization thing where I'd start to have her ask, okay, and then what does that little voice say? What does that inner knowing say? And through that process is when I realized this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'm here to do. And I think why I knew this was so big and why this was going to be my route was because honestly, as my clients were doing this, I was almost like walking myself through the same process, walking myself home to myself. And when I began to see how easy, but easier life gets when you tap into that inner knowing, I was realizing like, oh, wow, things start to open up for me. If I can help more women access this, that's it. That's all I want to do the rest of my life over and over and over.
And I bet those clients like went on to make decisions about their life. Like, I don't think I want this job anymore, or I think I need to have this relationship. Am I right? Like they started to make life changes from accessing that inner voice.
Yes, 100%. It was so like this one woman we kind of realized as we went deeper, she knew as we got to the deeper layers of herself. And then of course, then I started weaving in, I was being trained in subconscious healing modalities because again, the power of like accessing your intuition and knowing is great. But then as you know, Kelly, like we have this conditioning, we have these beliefs. And I wanted tools to help my clients work through that so that as we would do some deeper healing, it was so cool watching women be like, one woman was like, okay, I'm going big, but I could go bigger. And she like ended up like kind of scaling what she'd been doing to bigger and acquiring a few more things. And it was like magic. And whereas another one, she realized the thing that she was doing while she loved it, it was also like killing her soul. Like, it was just not in alignment for her. And ultimately we were able to walk her out of that into something more purposeful, which was so cool.
Oh my gosh. So I want like everybody listening to hear something. A lot of times we have this sense that like something inside of me can guide me. I've got some inner knowing, and we often ask ourselves questions like, where should I go? What should I do? What am I meant for? God, what's my purpose? What I heard Maria say was that intuition is just your ability to know something without having a logical way of knowing it.
Yes.
Okay, I want to say that again. Intuition is just your ability to know something without knowing how you know it. Okay. that was accessible to her clients only after they started to release the stress and release the subconscious blocks. That inner knowing was always available, but it's almost like we're blocked. And the reason I want to say that is because I got to work with Maria. We worked together. We had a one-on-one kind of like session where she was able to like help me connect to some of my spiritual purpose. And then I went into a 30-day immersion with her. And my inner knowing, it's not like it wasn't there. I couldn't access it because I had so much subconscious patterns and programming around that. So, Maria, can you speak to that on why it's important that if we're going to step into our higher purpose, why we need to remove some of the subconscious programming, and what does that even have to do with awakening?
Yeah. Oh, this is the juicy stuff. And like, this is what I could talk about for days. But okay, one thing I want to say though, first of all of us are intuitive. All of us have, and however you want to call it. I really want to say like different terms. Like for some people, talking about it as access to intuition might feel taboo. Like maybe you want to talk about it more like you want a closer relationship with God or whatever fits within your faith system. However you want to describe it, but we all have that ability. And I can't say it enough, but like it was embedded in the system, in the current system, to cut not just women, men as well, but cut us off from it, right? And how do we get cut off from this access? The biggest part, and I say this because I do still have a child who's in public school. He's in regular school, but when you think about it, we go to school, which school was ultimately created, I feel like from like an industrial standpoint, to create workers, worker bees, compliance, sit still, follow a clock, do the things, think about the things, but rarely does it talk about like tapping into your heart, soul, and your inner knowing. So I just want to give context. Like there's a reason why we all feel cut off from it, and we can walk ourselves back. It is so important to begin to examine our beliefs, our conditioning, where we have people pleasing, perfectionism, because I want you to think about it. All of those patterns is what pulls you out of your intuitive knowing. It's the pattern of, oh, my heart says I should say no this weekend because I'm feeling tapped out. I don't have the energy. But my people pleaser says, well, no, Sherry, I haven't seen Sherry in a while and I really need to go to Sherry's this weekend. So I better say yes. And so you deny your inner knowing. Or your inner knowing says, you just need to like put this thing out in the world. This is it. But your perfectionist, who is worried about people judging her, says, no, it's not ready yet. I cannot do that. Yep. So that is why you cannot avoid looking at your patterns, looking at your beliefs with love and compassion, which I know is hard. I mean, it's easy for us to then like judge ourselves and add on judgment and shame, but like you want to examine it because that's exactly what's pulling you out of your inner knowing.
Okay, can we just pause there for a second? Which is important to note. All of us have programs and patterns.
Yes.
When we were children, we learned to ask two major questions. What do I need to do in order to be loved and to be safe? Right? Love, belonging, safety is all we knew internally. So we surveyed the room. We watched our parents. We saw what's acceptable here. Who do I need to be in order to require or like secure that love and safety and belonging that we need? That was not something we consciously did. So every single person has programming, this little hypnosis that happens on kids up until the age of 7.
Yes.
That is happening without you ever having conscious awareness. So it's not like, oh, I'm not patterned or no, you are. Everybody is. It's not that. And so there becomes a point in our lives when we need to unlearn those things to find out, who am I beyond the programming? Who am I beyond these patterns? And I just want to share a quick story, Maria, because it's exactly what you're talking about. I remember the first intuitive I ever worked with. Her name was Kamala. And she was a sassy German woman. She is just spicy as all get out. And older woman, and she looked at me and I said, I'm such an achiever. I said something like that. And she said, Kelly, what if you're not? And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, what if that's not who you're meant to be? What if that's not who you naturally are? And I was like, what would I be? And she was like, Kelly, you are meant to teach presence. You are presence. And she was like, and you will find what you're looking for when you lean into presence. But it rocked my reality because I was like, does that mean I'm never going to be successful? Does that mean I'm never going to have like whatever? Because I wanted that, but I had such a pattern on top of me that said we need to achieve in order to feel valuable in any sense.
Yes.
When she was saying, what if all of your identity is not who you think you are? What if you're not who you think you are? And it was like rocked my world.
Yes. Yes.
But there was a whole me underneath when I started to look at my programming and my subconscious beliefs. Yeah.
100%. I even think for some reason this analogy is coming in to share too, which is kind of a funny analogy, but just take it for, it's just an analogy. Just think of like if someone like took a job as like a birthday clown, you know, and they're a birthday clown. And so every day they have to put on their clown mat, or like, you know, they have to paint their face, they put the hat on, they put the clown outfit on. And let's say someone knew that like their day job, they're typically a teacher, but let's say all summer they needed to make extra cash. And they're like, I'm going to be like a birthday clown all summer. And so every day they put on their clown mask, their clown outfit, you know, and they knew it was just temporary. They knew it was just like a filter or a thing that they had to put on. But before you know it, they look at themselves and it's like August 1st and she's about to have to go back into teacher mode because that's what she really does. But she forgot because every day she looked in the mirror and she thought, well, I'm a clown. I'm a clown. I'm a clown. I got to become the clown today. I have to be the clown around these kids because it's what's being asked of me.
Yeah.
She does that for 90 days straight. Well, soon all of a sudden she becomes the clown. It's hard for her to step back into like, yeah, but like truly though, you're a teacher. Like, you know, and she knew that. And I just say like, that's kind of this conditioning though. Like you said, out of survival when we're kids, you had to become the clown, or you had to become the funny one, or you had to become the dreamer, or you had to become the helper. And then all of a sudden, like 12 years later, 18 years later, when you're beginning to realize, like, wait a second, what do I really want? What am I? What do I want to be? And why did I come here? Well, first, you have to take off the mask. You have to take off the hat and the hair. You have to take off the jumpsuit. And we have to be willing to, like, see ourselves bare, which can also be affronting and hard, to then actually ask ourselves, oh, why am I here?
And so when you work with clients and they're starting to wake up, right? You're working with them, helping them to see, hey, this was this facade you learned to put on, and you're learning through the subconscious programmings, and they're starting to address that. Like, what happens for them after they start to lift those subconscious programming off of them?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things. And I do this in one-to-one and I do it in group. And it's really fascinating because when I'm doing group subconscious belief healing, and like shout out to a lot of my clients who like in the last year, I want to say since like January 2025, maybe also 2024, kudos to the women who are willing to like jump into deep subconscious healing with me. Not only trust me with that work, but we did it in a group. We were doing it in women, these small cohorts of like 6 to 8 women, and they trusted me to facilitate them on this journey of deep healing with a room full of strangers. I look back and I'm like, wow, I can't believe they like said yes to that. Okay. The transformation, not only here, like here's the really cool thing, and I plug that just because like women healing in groups is also healing in and of itself, because we have so many wounds as sisters. And oftentimes we're brought up to like compare ourselves to each other, to compete, to judge one another. So truly, if you are in community with women in any capacity, it's just healing to like learn how to be vulnerable with each other again. So it was just cool to see women, when they heal, they can begin to create true bonds and friendships. These women are like still friends, even though we're outside of those healing containers, you know? And what was fun was watching also, it's like, everybody's journey was a little bit different. So as the facade came down, as the different beliefs began shifting, it was like one woman realized, and you know, she's in a completely different career right now, but she realized like, I'm here to heal and I'm here to work with the elements of the earth. And so she has since completed a Reiki training. She's done subconscious healing training, and she's now beginning to like figure out the steps in like really starting her healing business. But like she did all of that within 3 to 6 months of being in one of my healing containers.
Wow.
Another woman, and that's where it's kind of like everybody's adventure is different. Another woman, she was already living in her purpose. She owns a private mental health practice, very successful, but a lot of her healing and wounds had to do more with relation. And since then, so she's had a better relationship now, like with her spouse,
Mm.
with her kids, with the relationship with her parents, because there was some conflict and tension there. And so for her, removing some of the beliefs, obstacles, and tension, it allowed her to feel safer and at ease with family and also shed some of those people pleasing tendencies that she'd really been showing up in.
Mm.
So, those are some examples of what's possible when you begin to shed the beliefs and the things that are no longer serving you.
Well, going back to your story, when you started waking up and you started like, okay, I'm following this little journey, and you started to allow, what was it like for you to allow some of your spiritual gifts to come in? Like, how was it when your human was like, wait, what? I'm curious, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I want to normalize, and I know you can relate to this, Kelly. When my spiritual awakening happened, I feel like over 7 years, but there was a point in 2023 when I did my own deep subconscious healing, and then all of a sudden it was just like whoosh. It was just like I was just in a different reality. Like I was very tuned in with my gifts, very tuned in with the energy of the world. It was just a change in me. But there was then this like fear of how do I introduce this version of myself
Mm.
to people? Like, so it's real when people say, like, oh, can you come out of the woo woo closet? Like, oh, she's more like intuitive now. She's really deep in her faith or whatever. And there is the stages of it maybe where it's like you yourself notice you're more awake. But then it's like, how do I begin to share this with the world? Who do I feel initially safe sharing this with? So it was honestly like a journey, probably of over a year, of like, first I started sharing more of myself and that version of myself with like my other woo woo business entrepreneur friends at the time. I was in the James Wedmore world, and it's very like business plus woo accepting there. So it was like my first, yeah, beautiful space where I could like practice being around people.
It's like a safe space. Yeah.
100%. And then it was honestly like even like beginning to dabble some of that in conversations with my husband.
Mm.
And I want to point out, like, he's not like, he wouldn't call himself like full spiritually awake by any means. But even now, we can have like conversations around spirit animals. I could throw like, hey, it's the full moon. We should be like doing some energetic cleansing in here. So it was like sprinkling it there. And then a little bit with friends, some close friends of mine. And probably the biggest one that's been the most difficult, ironically, it's not even with like sharing it with the public. I can blast this stuff online on Instagram all day. It's almost more like the perception of like this local community, or when I meet other moms from my son's school,
Mm.
or the soccer family or whatever, you know what I mean? It's almost like that in some of those spaces where I'm, maybe the people aren't as open and awake. That's when I'm also like practicing discernment of like, I don't feel the need to like blast in everybody's space. Like, hey, I'm psychic intuitive and I'm reading you. But also it's like allowing myself to fully be my authentic self when people ask, hey, what do you do? Or, oh, how did you know that? And learning to really like allow myself to fully be in all spaces.
Well, and how has living in your gifting, like, how has embracing your full authentic self that you have access to at this moment in time, right? I don't want to say this. I want to say it like, Maria, what's that like? What's that like to feel who you are on the inside and be her on the outside?
I didn't know what this would elicit from me, that question, Kelly, because it's a really simple question, but I could cry because I have never felt so free.
Mm.
And as someone who I realize now on the other end of what it's like to like be out of a cage, out of a box that you created for yourself, I look back on the version of me that kept herself in the bubble
Mm.
because it was safe. But she had no idea the level of freedom that she could have. So to be able to have that level of freedom now, it truly puts so many things in perspective. And there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear. There's a lot going on in the world right now. And yet the fact that I can always come back to myself, that I know myself, that I feel like I have this assuredness in my sense of self, in my purpose, and that I honestly can just be who I am.
Mm.
It's just like, okay, great. So I already have everything I need. That is enough and more. Everything else is going to be fine.
But you guys, I want you to hear this because what Maria was saying, she was living this whole other world that made sense to enter into. Let me stay in healthcare. That makes sense. I've seen that in my reality. Let me get a career here. Oh, I'm working within the corporate field. Here's stress management. That all makes sense. But she was living as like a diminished version of herself. And what happened when she started to allow her purpose to flow through and it to evolve, and as she started healing, she's now accessed what it's like to wake up every day and for your inner world to feel like your outer world, to like go, I'm doing it. I'm being me. I'm the most authentic version of myself. The world that's around me has all said yes to me because of who I really am. Like that's so cool. It's like the world has said yes to you, Maria, as Maria.
Yeah.
She's woo, she's scientific, she's got healthcare background, she loves, advocacy. Like the world has said yes now to the values that really move you forward. And that's what we're all craving.
Yeah.
And so I want to drive that home because, when we go into spiritual awakenings, when we start to awaken, we're going to have this sense of fear of like, no, it's like so scary to imagine not being the version of ourselves that we were, because that feels safe.
Yes.
But when we really let go, if you would really allow what you came to be and do and have and express and create, when you really can get unblocked and be that person, I want to say this, who you be, your most authentic self will not only feel good to you and feel good in your life, it will be good for the world. Because I look at Maria, had I met her as the stress management coach, we wouldn't have resonated. She would not have changed my life. She might have made a difference, right? But the version of Maria that I got to meet, you guys, I told her so many times in us working together, I was like, you're like just doing it. Like you wake up every day and you just like say what you want to say and then you create what you want to create and you've got no restriction. She was like, I know. I got really free over the last few years. And you guys, she changed my life because she stepped into her spiritual gifts.
Yes.
And every single one of you has spiritual gifts. And some of them look and can be labeled like woo, right? They can be like, I heard from an angel today. But other ones are like, I somehow intuitively know, I'm not sure how, but I'm listening to my inner guidance that something's wrong with this person's, liver. Or I intuitively know that you should create your business in this way. I have a sense for it. Like the way that our guidance comes through, I remember thinking it was going to feel like an alien or an angel speaking to me. And that's never happened to me, y'all. But what happens is I almost feel and hear things more heightened as I'm working with clients. And I'll just say them and they're like, oh, that's exactly what I need to do. Or that's the thing. So our intuitive gifts, when we live into our intuitive gifts, not only do we experience the most beautiful, fulfilling, whole, loving inner experience and outer, but your gifts will make a difference on the world. And yeah, I'd love to hear what you just want to add to that. I just felt like I wanted to say that.
That was so, so good. And so like Kelly, I love you and I love these conversations. And like, I know we could take like one of these morsels and like talk about it for an hour. But a couple things that came up as you were sharing that is one, I want you to know it's exactly what you just described is how I was initially tuning into my intuition, but not really calling it intuition. And then I was like, oh, maybe this is like my sixth sense. So how you said, we think intuition, or if you're psychic or whatever your soul gifts is going to be like, oh, like the guy from Ghost is going to come down and talk to me, or an angel is going to come right to my face or whatever. And while it can be that for some people, it initially can just be like, if you're someone who works with clients or something, you just pick up on things of like, oh, I feel like we got to go here in the session, or, oh, I feel like, okay, no, I feel like we need to dive deeper into that. There's something there. And so like, I think that's exactly when I was in OT, people would always be like, well, I worked with so-and-so and I never even got that. How did you know that? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, we just knew like this is where we needed to go or whatever it was. So I just want to point out more often than not, you probably are getting some intuitive signals. And you were even giving examples like it might because like you intuitively know like your dog's sick and you need to take him
Mhm.
to a vet, or like you intuitively know like something's wrong and like your kid's getting bullied at school. And even if everybody else is like, no, they're fine, they're fine, they're fine. But like, you know, as a mom, right, you have this instinct of like, no, something is off here and I'm going to like figure it out. So all of that is intuition. And then the more you begin to open yourself up to that wisdom and guidance. And again, however you want to call it, my inner knowing, messages from God, angels speaking to me, whatever it is. I promise the more you begin to open up to that, oftentimes the more we begin to start to notice and become
Mhm.
aware of those signs. And then, I mean, again, and then if you enter my world, like you can do deeper subconscious healing, even like remove some more of the blocks. Because as crazy as it sounds, so many of us can actually awaken and open up more of our clairs, as we call them, like how we receive messages, where you can see things like almost visions, like in your imagination. I have women who it's like, oh, yeah, like I can see things, but we're told to like disregard these things. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Pick that off to the side. So just staying open and curious in that is so important, not just because it's like, oh, cool, I know I saw a hawk today, but like also though, but what was that hawk trying to tell you?
Mhm.
How are you being in alignment with your soul mission, path, and purpose? Or how are you not? Where do we need to lean in? Where do we need to lean out? Like it's all just information that then we can kind of attune to on our path and journey. And one quick thing to point out too is you guys, our guides, if we're just not getting it, they can send us messages through people, right? So for example, I met Kelly for a reason. And sometimes I need it reflected back to me because I'm used to doing this work day in and day out, that I'm calling it like, oh, this is just normal, right? Like,
Mhm.
just me doing my coaching work with people. But for example, my guides might send a message to me through Kelly, by Kelly reflecting my gifts back to me, exactly what I needed to hear. So when your best friend gives you that like morsel of advice and you're like, wow, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Like sometimes your guides are like, yeah, we know, we've been trying to tell you. So we had your best friend tell it to you. So
100%.
just be open to receiving.
Yeah. And so, Maria, you and I are both very aligned in a mission right now. We really see that female leadership is a part of the greatest need and action on the planet to help heal our world. And so I'm curious for you, as we kind of just wrap up our energy today, why is women stepping into their purpose, leaning into their intuition, why is it important at this moment in time?
It has never been more important because for centuries, we say, I want to see a better world. I want to see a brighter world. I want to see a more loving world. And not with non ill intentions or with like people have been trying to make that happen. But for the longest time, I think women in society have been conditioned of like, oh, well, that means I should stay in some kind of traditional role, either to help others or, I don't want to stand in the limelight. I want to be humble right now. We just get these conditionings, these beliefs, these things of like, yeah, we don't want to be too much. We don't want to be seen as a woman who's too much. Right now, this moment is asking each of us to stand in our brightest light. This moment is asking each of us to look directly at our deepest fears and doubts and ask ourselves, is that true? Is that true or is that my conditioning? And ask ourselves, what actually lights me up? Where and how do I want to utilize my gifts in the world? This moment is demanding it. Because if we say we want to create a brighter, better, more loving world, the truth is no one's coming to save us. We save us,
Yeah.
each of us, by turning on our light, utilizing our gifts, and aligning to our path and purpose. That's the work.
And you want to know what's interesting? I want everybody to hear this. You stepping into your purpose may look like a more visible version of you. It may look like a more outspoken, rebellious version of you. Who knows? Or it may look like someone who's being called into their home and someone who's called to love their neighbors more. I think about myself at this moment in time, my obedience to my calling, the greatest work I could be doing was doing less work and more leadership in my home. And that looks on to the world, it looks like, man, maybe she's scaling back or something. It's like, I'm giving my greatest energy to raise three little humans who are conscious and kind and emotionally stable and loving and of service, and they believe in themselves. Like, I realized you've got to stop teaching everyone else this. You need to teach your children, like, them first, everybody else next. And so I just want to say, you may be called to come into the home and work less and let your man provide more. And that was the dynamic that needed to happen in your family. Or it may look like, get up, sister. You need to create something and you need to speak, and we need you to be brave. And so however it looks, your contribution will count towards all of us living in a more loving, healthy, whole, circular, united planet. And it's what we need. And so there's not one action or calling that's better than the other.
100 times a million. I really love that you added that, Kelly, because oftentimes who you hear saying those types of things, like stand in your power, step into your purpose, might be people like you and I who, like, we feel fairly comfortable in front of the camera with a microphone, like saying our message. But that doesn't mean that's the only way you can step into your purpose. The me from 2023, I had actually just come off of a career. I had built my business where I was doing keynote speeches. I was doing business to business wellness trainings, very visible, but also still in some patterning and wounding. So in 2023, the best thing I could do to stand on my purpose was literally to walk away from all of it, walk away from the stage, walk away from holding the microphone and all the visibility, and was literally going into deeper healing because I was being deeply triggered even by my son at the time, inner child wounds coming up. The best thing I could do to stand in my purpose in that moment was, like, it wasn't about the fame. It wasn't about, like, oh, Maria, great job on stage. Old me would have been like, no, that's what I'm going for. No, I knew it was like, yeah, but I'm tense at home. Yeah, but the crying triggers me, or whatever it is. The best thing I could do in that season was walk away from all the other external validation and be like, why the heck am I so short with my son? I need to figure out that. Because like you said, Kelly, like, I was like, I can't keep on this talking about presence and resilience and purpose, but then come home and be short with my, at the time, 4 or 5-year-old.
Yep.
So agree 100%. It can look different in different seasons. If for some people it's like, I feel called to write a blog right now, or I feel called to homeschool my kids right now, or I feel called to run my, be in my 9 to 5, which gives me purpose, but also I want to start a book club, or whatever it is. Like, do it, do the thing.
100%. Yeah. Maria, what do you have going on? Like, what's happening in your world? How can people work with you?
Right now, it's kind of where we started the conversation, Kelly. I love helping people awaken, but not just to their intuition, spirituality, and gifts. That's part of it, yes, but it's like awakening to your purpose. Right. Why are you here? And even as humans, like, you might know it, and I think even Kelly, when you came to me too, you were like, I know, but like, can I just hear it from you? Like, can we just like affirm this? Because I too need that, And so a couple of things is, right now I have some different programs or different things that when you come into my world, I want to help you with, like, living from your purpose. And so whether that's from, I have a masterclass of just like discovering your purpose. If you want to go through that just to get more affirmation of, like, who am I? What are my gifts? And what am I here for? To a program that I'm currently in the process of, will be kicking off shortly here, or it might already be in process. And it's going to be something that people could just come into when they're ready, which is, how do I live from my purpose? Because I think I saw a gap where it's like, some people, it's like, okay, no, I feel like I kind of generally know what my purpose is, like, great. But whether it's life events, personal events, stress, fear, doubt, whatever it is, we can get pulled off. We can get pulled out of our purpose. And so I'm creating some programs and things that women can step into when they're ready of like, how do I come back? How
Definitely.
do I come back to living and embodying my purpose? And so the best place is if you go and follow me on Instagram at I am Maria Christine. We'll have it in the show notes.
Mhm.
That's the best way to kind of see what I have currently open and what you can hop into. But if you truly want to continue to live a life aligned to your purpose, come say hello.
I love that. Maria, thank you for just normalizing what it looks like to awaken, to see the world in its bigger, expanded form. And man, y'all, I've personally worked with her myself. And so I can't recommend that experience enough because even this moment, I wouldn't be in without the deposit of your gift in my life and you just being who you are and not holding back the true, most potent, unfiltered version of you. I needed that whole dang thing. I needed the beautiful, multi-dimensional version of you. And so I want to encourage that for other women. You guys, each one of you is so unique. The way that you live, the way that you see the world, the way that all the experiences that have compounded to give you the 1% expression of you, be all of it, be the multidimensional version of you. So, Maria, thank you for being here with us today and just giving us sight for what it looks like to awaken and just next steps if we want to move forward. I can't wait to have you back.
Kelly, thank you so much.
Thank you.